Welcome to Built on Air, a podcast and video series about all things Airtable. Today, we're joined by Chris Guthrie, an e-commerce aficionado and another featured speaker from this year's inaugural Airtable Users Conference. In addition to selling his own line of products on Amazon, Chris specializes in helping other sellers maintain and grow successful Amazon private label businesses using the power of Airtable and automation. After discussing how his business began and has managed complications brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, Chris shows us his Airtable base that helps keep his orders, shipping, and inventory data in check. With some insight into a few scripts he's written, we explore his unique approach to solving some popular Airtable sticking points, from formulas to Page Designer.
So this is a scrubbed version of the base that we use. And it actually, at first I thought, oh, that'll be easy. But the more I dug into it, I really had to manipulate the data and remove a lot of sensitive information. So there are going to be some fields that are not going to be occupied, unfortunately, but most of those are just attachment fields with some, different sensitive information in them. So with the advent of, I'll start here with the advent of buttons. I created what we call the dashboard. So me and my team, we can come in here, and this dashboard is broken down into different categories where we can easily click to take us to different views within the base to perform different tasks, because we do have a lot of tables in here, and some team members can get a little bit lost, but they always know they can come out here, search for a topic, and be able to go directly to the view that they can use to either enter the new data or edit the existing data. And whenever I started to design the base years ago, At first I was using like different automations, and I couldn't really wrap my brain around how to track inventory. So I was like moving inventory from different stages from one table to another, but I didn't like how that worked because I was relying on outside services like Zapier to do that. But I wanted to move everything inside of Airtable. So eventually I'll get to that here in a sec, but how I have a way to track every single inventory event. So again, we start here with the dashboard, and if there's different pieces of information that a team member needs to go to, they can click on a link. And then our base, it serves kind of 2 to 3 purposes. It tracks all of our details of all of our products. It tracks inventory. It tracks our buy cost for each, all the way down to the individual piece, how much each individual unit cost us. And it allows us to create work orders, purchase orders, and track shipments and inspections for new product orders from our vendors, whether that's a brand new product we're launching or if we are reordering a new product. I think what I'll show you first is just a quick way that finally I've gotten the base to a point where I can create a new order with a vendor and only have to fill out 2 tables, fill out information in 2 different tables. So the way I've organized it is that I create a table called Order Group Summary. And in this view here, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields I have to fill in order to create the order. And the order itself can contain any number of items from our database. So all I would do is I would create a new row here, give the order a new name, and I usually just go with a sequential order number and just give it a quick description. So I may be ordering sports hats. I'm going to put who the buyer is. In most cases, it's my company. But we do work with other clients, and sometimes they'll be the buyer. At this point, I'm going to put in my PO costs. So if I have a product I order over and over from a manufacturer and the price never changes, I can enter the cost right here, right now. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it blank because I'm going to create an RFQ inside of Airtable so that I can send that RFQ off to the supplier to ask them, hey, how much are these units going to cost if I purchase this many units? I'm going to put the terms of purchase, which with most suppliers is going to be a 30% deposit with a 70% of remaining balance once the manufacturing is finished. And then do I have any specific notes to this order? And most of the time, a lot of these fields are blank, but if I have something special that needs to go on specific to this order, not specific to the product, but specific to the order, I'm going to enter it here. And then I'm going to choose what's the identifier on our items. And the only reason I have this field is because we're actually in a transition period where we used to use barcodes that Amazon issues to us, but we've moved to the universal UPC codes you see in any grocery store. Then I come over to my inventory and order events. And this is where I'm going to assign individual line items to this order. And I need to create a new group. So, this is a little tricky actually with Airtable, that I wish there was like a add new button instead of having to enter it into a group if you have a view that's using the grouped by feature.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Right now, it'll let you do that if the groups are based on a calculated field and you can't, it will have the button. But if you're going to view like the one that we're seeing now, where you can add things, the add button, like the universal add button, isn't there. And
I know. I wish
it was.
They give you both like all the time. Yeah. It would be awesome. Yes, I totally agree with you there. So I create a new row. I switched it to that order group. So this first field is a linked field that linked back to that new order group that we just created. And now I'm just going to enter today's date just to keep track of stuff like that. Now this is the linked field where I'm going to add the individual item itself to this line item. Now we said we're going to order sports hats, and then here I have a sport hat red and a sports hats black. Now I would need to create a new row for every different variation. So I'm going to order sports hat red, then I'm going to enter, say, 1,000 units. I'm going to choose the company that I'm ordering from. Now let's say it's, I don't know, it doesn't really matter for these purposes. Now, here I'm going to enter any type of shipping cost that my supplier would charge me to get their items from their factory to the port, so that my items can get on a boat and sail across the seas over to America. If I don't know that, I leave it blank for now. And do I have any notes specific to this line item? I would enter them here. And then what do I want my purchase terms to be? Like, this gets into a little bit, this is very technical jargon here, but I'm going to use FOBC, meaning these items are going to go on a boat versus being on an airplane. Where am I going to ship them to? So I choose which of my third-party logistics warehouses I want them to go to. Now, which marketplace? Because I do sell in Europe and I sell in America. I'm going to choose United States. And then here, do I know my package info for my products, or do I know my carton info? If I do, I'm going to connect them into these rows here. Sports hat, and then sports hat. Now, let's also say that I want to order 1,000 units, but I think that, man, I'm going to order a total of 1,000, but I'm going to ship 800 by sea and 200 by air because I'm going to run out of stock soon. But I don't want to run out of stock on Amazon, so I'll pay a little bit more to have these extra 200 units shipped by air. What I would actually do is I would duplicate this row, change the first row to 800 units, change the second row to 200 units to total the initial 1,000, and say that this second row is going to go by air. At this point, I have all of the individual line items for the purchase order. I'm going to go back over to my order group summary table, and I've created a script. And this was one of my huge pain points, still is with Airtable, is that Page Designer is cool, but it's not robust enough. And I know that you're working on a solution that probably helps with all this also. But one thing that I do not like about Page Designer is that the boxes are a finite size, and if any text flows out of a text box, it's just going to get cut off. And just I went through many rounds of designing different forms in Page Designer, but just none of them really worked. So what I've ended up with is, ever since they've allowed for formatting in long text fields, and also for that formatting to come through into Page Designer, I'm actually entering all the information I need for a purchase order into one field that's a long text, rich format field, and then displaying that inside of Page Designer. So I'll show you that here. So I'm going to generate a summary. It's going to run a script. As we all know, sometimes this takes a little bit. Do you happen to know, I've been thinking about doing this, breaking all of my scripts into different dashboards so that not all the scripts have to load at the same time.
I do that. Well, when you run a script as opposed to an automation script action, it will open up your apps panel. And so that's why we're seeing not just the one that's supposed to run, but there's one above and one below it. So a lot of times if I have a base that needs more than one script, I'll just kind of name the dashboard, the purpose of that script, and then just place each one of them in their own dashboard, or I'll group similar ones together. And that way less is being loaded at the same time.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that, because here I was thinking about even grouping them like you're talking about. So I have a script running with this button called Generate Summary, but then I also have a Page Designer that gets brought up with this other button here called View RFQ. Thinking about putting those two in the same dashboard versus having a scripts dashboard and like a reports dashboard. Anyways, I think that I'm not exactly sure. I think it has to do with my base being scrubbed, but let me just use this row here that I know works. Oh, and I clicked the wrong button. I apologize. So generate summary on the row that I know that works. It fills in this field here called summary. What do you know? It's not working here, but the field was already filled in yesterday. Yeah, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
So luckily I'd already ran this script. So the script runs, and then it doesn't look great here in this little tiny window here, but what it's going to look a lot better whenever I click View RFQ, and it's going to bring up the Page Designer that has that field that's being populated. Yeah, so with the script, I'm building a simple table. Just because, again, I was so frustrated with the limitations. Yeah, you could bring in a table based on base information directly into Page Designer, but if you had other boxes below that table and that table happened to be too long, then the table is going to get cut off and the RFQ is just not going to look right. So we have who's the supplier we're requesting this from, what are our purchase terms, this is our company information, payment terms, here are the individual items we're ordering. So 500 or 1,000 units of this item, 500 units of this item. This top row, 1,000 units are going to the United States, 500 are going to the United Kingdom. This is the price that our supplier has given us per unit. And then here's our terms for shipping. We have all of our components that go into the product. We have a link that takes us to another part of Airtable, which actually I think this is pretty cool. This is another feature I'm utilizing from Airtable, is the public, like the shared view filtering. So my supplier can click on this link and it takes them to this part of the base, but this is the shared view, and I'm using the filtering in the URL to show them all the components related to this order.
That's very nice.
Yeah, so they can download them. We have a preview image field and then also a print file field. So like the print file is intended for like the actual like Adobe Illustrator files or whatever else they're going to put in their large bulk printers to print the packaging or the paper inserts or the other pieces of the product. I'm doing the same thing with a style sheet. So these aren't real. Normally this would be a picture of an item that or it would have each individual little component inside of this picture. So it would show like, this is the packaging, here are the dimensions, here's the product insert, here's the product itself, and then here's the accessory that goes in the box or something like that. So that the supplier has one file or one view of what everything needs to be that goes into this product. And then it just keeps going down. And the one thing I'm utilizing inside of the script is using a lot of Markdown. And to make this part stand out, I'm using just the code block so that it has that gray outline and has a uniform text. Product notes, general notes, my terms for purchasing. Do we have any complaints from previous orders for things that need to be fixed for this new order? Like, say the buckle breaks on this one product. So I'm also going to have a conversation with my supplier on the side over here, say, hey, let's fix this buckle, but at least I'm putting it on paper here. Let's fix this part of this product here. And then we have a special checklist because every one of our orders, we do have an inspection done before it ships out of China. We have a third-party team that goes out and does due diligence for us and sends us a very, very detailed report so that we can hopefully catch any imperfections in the order before it gets on the boat. So all of this data is all being pulled in from one single rich text field.
That's impressive. And I don't think I've ever seen someone building their own table with Markdown for the purposes of getting it into Page Designer.
Yeah, it was just the best way I could think of it without going to an outside tool like FormStack, which, don't get me wrong, works really great, but for my purposes, is just too expensive.
Yeah.
You only get like 100 forms a month or something like that for like $200. I was like, no, I could do something better or something that maybe not better, but something that will work for my purposes.
Right.
So we have RFQs that are generated inside of Airtable. Same with a purchase order. It's basically the exact same table of data, just the format, like the color and the title of the report is a little bit different. So we send that off to a supplier. Then the next thing we need to do is pay them. So we're going to track our transactions inside of Airtable, tie them to the original order so that we can keep tabs on how much the individual units for this order cost, for now and for tax purposes down the line. So then we have a table way over here called transactions. We would record every piece that's going to go into what's called cost of goods sold. So let me go down here. On this last order, we have the cost of our inspection. We had our product deposit for $500, transaction fees I'm tracking when we use credit cards versus bank transfers, our product balance, the another product or a transaction fee. And then because this order went, so I've organized my Airtable also so that later down the line, I could have multiple orders with one supplier, but instead of shipping all those orders individually, I want to ship them all at the same time so that they can ride together and I can save on shipping. So on this one, the shipping looks really low because this order was riding with 6 other orders and we broke the shipping cost out amongst all those different orders.
Got it.
So then at this point, we have the total sum of the order, and then it's just a simple division divided by how many units, and then we have the individual unit cost. Let's see, what else was I going to show you? Now, the one table that we looked at earlier called inventory and order events, it also is going to help us track all of our inventory down the line. So I've worked out this system because it's actually very similar to the way Amazon presents data to us with units that they receive versus units in, units out. So on an order so we have the initial order with our supplier, and that is this section here. We ordered 1,400 units. Once they're done in production, they're going to be subtracted from that supplier. Then those 1,400 units, you notice the date here is 9/28. Then they're going to be transferred to our shipping partner, Pacific Sun Freight Forwarding, on the same day. positive 1,400 units. Then a month later, whenever they arrive in the United States, we negative those back out from that supplier, and then we transfer them on the same day from that freight forwarder to our third-party logistics warehouse, where they're going to sit until we sell them.
Okay.
And then even from here, whenever we deduct units from this warehouse, we're going to add them as more individual line items saying, hey, we sent these units from this third-party logistics warehouse over to the Amazon warehouses, so that Amazon can fulfill the final item sale to the customer. And this was my solution versus moving data from table to table to table. It just felt like a more easily tracked in a historical view of every single order that we have.
Yeah, looks like a regular log.
Yeah, definitely. And one other thing I'd like to show you is when I alluded to it a minute ago, so that we create a shipment, but multiple orders can ride inside of that shipment. So then I have a shipments table, and we would create a new shipment. I just have a formula field that just automatically creates the name of the shipment. And in here, in this linked field called inventory events, we link the individual line items from the purchase order, from any purchase order. So in this case, I probably should have actually created a diagram for this, but in an order from a supplier, I could have 1,000 units going to the United States, 1,000 units going to the United Kingdom, but those units are not going to ship together because they're going to ultimately different places.
Mhm.
So I'm connecting the individual line items to the shipment versus the entire order to the shipment, so that I can break those out into different shipments.
Yeah.
So I have another quick page designer that creates a quote sheet I can send to the freight forwarder so they can give me some pricing. We have a status column, but then where did I put it? If I have, say, 6 different orders, and each order has 5 or 6 variations in them, and all of those, and I'm at the point where I'm transferring units from the supplier to the freight forwarder, or from the freight forwarder to the third-party warehouse. That's a lot of different manual entries into that table. It could be, up to, 20, 30, 40 entries per different shipment. So I created another script, and I just actually got finished with this a week or so ago. And I thought I added a button, but I'm not finding it for some reason. Yeah. Well, I just created a script that automatically goes out, asks me some questions similar to a form, and transfers the units as I need them. And cross my fingers that it works once I find it here. Okay, come on. This script I need to make a little more efficient. I need to lessen the amount of data that's getting loaded in up front.
Mm-hmm. That's something I'm trying to get better at as well.
Yeah, definitely paring down the fields to only the ones that are necessary, or even loading different views. So I pick a shipment record, and then it's going to show me a table of information. So this individual shipment only has line items that are still in the vendor status. So these units are still at the vendor. They have not been transferred to a freight forwarder, and definitely have not been transferred to a 3PL. Then I'm asked, what type of transfer would you like to initiate right now? So I'm going to pick supplier to freight forwarder. I choose the freight forwarder I'm going to be using. And then it's creating all the records I need it to. So then here in a second, I'll show you, we're going to go to order 0035 UK. And I'll show you that it created all those individual rows of data. So originally here, all we had was this row for this variation. It deducted it from the supplier and then transferred it to the freight forwarder.
Yep. And I see it filled in today's date as well.
Yes, it did.
Super
and it
cool.
did it for all 3 variations.
Well, that's efficient.
Yeah, that one was a kind of, I always dreaded going in and entering all the data, or me or my assistant did for sure.
This is very impressive, and I'm taking it all in. I have a little side project that is vaguely tangential, and it's kind of giving me ideas into the kinds of things someone in the real world would have to deal with and the processes that they might want to automate. And how many different scripts are in this base?
Not actually too many. I think 4 or 5.
All right.
Yeah, it's not a lot. I have that one here. I forgot to rename for this demo base, but 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
This is another cool one that I think you would like, replenish inventory, but I'll show it to you another time.
Okay. Yeah, aside from my invoicing thing, the first idea I had of this in this similar realm was something that dealt with inventory management. And I want to make a process that's super, super simple, but you've already basically done it with your scripts and moving things from point A to point B and filling in the date and all the linked fields and getting you the information of where something currently is once you pick it from the selection box. So congratulations. I'm sure this has made your process a lot smoother.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
for sure. And it's not just that, but it's also helped us be less prone to human error.
Right.
So I have a lot of checks in the scripts to make sure that, things aren't being double transferred, or, if it says that it needs to transfer, if I initially put in the order that this unit's going to the United Kingdom, but I choose a final destination warehouse that's not in the United Kingdom, it's going to throw an error, different things like that, where we would have problems before, and you'd have to go dig through the history and say, okay, what's going on here? Where did this record go? Or why is it here? So this has helped lower the amount of human error.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason a lot of us, move toward adding a few scripts or a few apps to our bases, just to make sure that, we can be less hands-on, filling in absolutely every single field, especially if you're working with an order that has, more than 2 line items. That's going to get more than 2 line items means much more than 2 other places that you have to fill in that data, like that, because you might be shipping to different countries. That was really nice. Like I said before, we're going to put your link to your talk that you had at the Airtable user conference. Is there anything else that you would like to plug?
Nothing other than I am starting to work with a few clients on helping them with their Airtable bases. So right now, if anybody'd like to reach out to me, especially if you're in the e-commerce world and you'd like to get your brain around tracking inventory, or, ordering processes, or even just some sort of task management related to e-commerce, feel free to reach out to me. I'm working with people right now pro bono, just to kind of get my name out there and just to, kind of break into the Airtable world more.
Great. So we'll put that there as well. Thank you so much for showing us your base and walking us through it and kind of giving us a more concrete picture of what it takes to be a successful seller on Amazon, and then a successful user of Airtable itself.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Of course.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to give it a like or hit us up on social at BuiltOnAir. We always love to hear your comments and suggestions. And don't forget to subscribe to catch new episodes when they release. It helps us keep the podcast going.